2, 3, 4. Woo!
Welcome to Me and the Geek. I'm me, Joel Sharpton. You can find me on Twitter at The Rogues Life. And every week on Me and the Geek, we have a conversation with a different geek about their area of expertise, their passion, what they're geeky about. We think that everyone's geeky about something here at meandthegeekpod.com, and we want to help you find your geek. This week, we're going to be talking to Mark Guinn. He's the director of the School of Performing Arts at Louisiana Tech University in Ruston, Louisiana, but he's much more than that. He's a hero of mine and my first celebrity here on the show. When I started this show, one of my hopes was to have some famous guests from time to time, to be able to reach out to people who've really accomplished something in their career that I don't know necessarily in my personal life, and be able to discuss their geek with them. Well, I do know Mark. He and I go back about 15 or 16 years now, but he is a celebrity in his own right. And among some circles, he's known all over the world. People call him Rat. People call him Guinn. People call him Mr. Guinn, Dr. Guinn, Professor Mark, everything in between. I call him my buddy and my friend, and in a lot of ways, my mentor, too. He was one of my theater professors when I did my undergraduate work at Louisiana Tech, and he was one of the first people I thought of when I started conceiving of this show and who I might have for a guest. Today, we're going to talk about lighting design. The name of this episode is The Creation of Shadow, and I think you're going to find the importance of that during the conversation. It is a great one. If you think this is not for you, I promise if you'll stick with it 5 or 10 minutes, Mark will win you over. He's a great speaker and a wonderful thinker and a wonderful artist. Stick around after the episode for some ways to feed back with us, and for now, just enjoy Me and the Geek. Welcome to Me and the Geek. This week's geek, Mark D. Guinn. He's the director of the School of Performing Arts for Louisiana Tech. He's got a lot of other titles on his name, and you can check out his full resume in the show notes today. But first of all, just welcome to the show, Mark. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm great, Joel. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you too, man. Thanks for taking some time to talk to me. And sort of like I said in the intro to this show, there is a tremendous amount of things that we could talk to you about, even just your current projects. But today, I wanted to focus on your history in lighting. You know, what we do on this show is every week I talk to a different quote-unquote geek. I talk to somebody about their passion, their area of interest, their area of focus and expertise. And we've talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about Saturday Night Live. We talked about Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to talk about stage combat with your son, as a matter of fact, pretty soon.
Excellent.
Yeah. But you've got this great history that I think even some of your students overlook, specifically in the world of lighting and lighting design. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about. So first off, give us, how does a river rat from Tennessee get into the world of lighting? I mean, I don't imagine that you as a kid, that was a career path that was held out to you.
No, it wasn't. It was discovered, actually. I was working on my undergraduate degree as a wildlife biologist. I was committed to going back to Tennessee and saving the bottomlands. And then I guess it was in my sophomore year, taking a introduction to art class, that the final project was we had to, as a class, get together and put everything in the gallery. We had to do a show. And in the process of doing the show, I wanted to or became interested in how my project was going to be lit, and went in search of lights for the project, and ended up downstairs in the Norton Regional Arts Center and found this guy by the name of Mark DeRuggio, who was a technical director for the theater. And he said, "Sure, I got lights, but I need a little bit of help. So if I give you lights, you got to give me some help." And and that was it, man. That was the hook. I got the lights and went up and lit my project and was real happy about that. And then ended up down helping DeRuggio on, I don't even remember the name of the show that we were working on, but that was it. That was kind of the hook that dragged me into the world of lighting design. And then I met a dancer and became enamored of the human form and the revelation of form in space. There really wasn't a dance program at the undergraduate I went to. And this young lady had a group of like-minded folks, and they were putting on an annual dance concert and asked me to light the project. And I guess that's where it all started. The appreciation of the revelation of form in space, the ethereal and ephemeral quality to light itself. And then, there were a whole string of influences throughout my life that continued to push me in that direction.
Well, and that's a good thing to know about you. If somebody's listening to this and they don't know who you are and haven't followed down the rabbit hole of Mark Guinn online yet, you're a guy that has chased whimsy a lot in your life, and have seen an opportunity laid before you and said, "Hey, that sounds like a fun gig. I'll try that for a
Yes.
while." And you don't say no to a lot of things, but specifically on lighting, what was it about? I mean, I know you're a performance-minded guy. What was it about lighting that you thought, and if you're also a scenic designer, which is something else that we're going to discuss someday. In particular, there's a couple of your shows that I think are really challenging at the level of theater that you were doing, at the level of budget that you're able to do it, and the things you're able to bring out of a set. But what was it about lighting that you said, this is enough? This is enough of a palette before me to say the thing that I want to say as an artist?
Wow. It's a really good question, Joel. And I don't know that I have a distinct, I don't know that I have a distinct answer for that. I guess it's I think one of the things that, and this is the conundrum that I suffer a lot, is I don't live a full outdoors life now, but I grew up in the outdoors, and I think that it was my love of the outdoors and my love of being in the woods and on the river that were taking me down the pathway to wildlife conservation, and wildlife biology. And it's just an appreciation of form and of light, and the place in where we found ourselves. And it's not that I want to emulate the world. It's that the theater offers a place for exploration. And there's always been that bit of artist in me that looks for that sense of magic, of creation, of creating that image, that image that's going to live forever in your brain, that you can always go back to and have have an emotional response to, have a sense of pleasure of looking at, or a sense of mystery of looking at. And that's what's always pulled me back is, okay, now that we're working on this project, how do we do that? How do we make that happen? And there's a lot of tools in the toolbox I have now as an old geek that I go back to. But in the beginning, it was, searching for that. What is it that's out there?
So talk to me about one of those tools that you found along the way, and you had quite a history with it. Talk to me about the telescope.
You have done your homework. Holy crap, man. Telescan was a French company. I don't even know if they're still in business. I'm sure they are.
I found some websites, telescan.fr. You can still find some information. I don't know about purchasing. There are links for repair. There are links for galleries. There's links for performing. But I don't know that you can actually buy units from them anymore.
Oh, man, I'd be surprised that they're still manufacturing those refrigerators. I was really, really lucky and had a great buddy who's still working in the lighting industry by the name of Bert Bracegirdle. And he had called me. We met on my first bus and truck tour with Nebraska Theater Caravan. He was he got me on my first big tour and was the technical director, I guess, on the tour, and I was just a follow spot op. And he ended up going to LA and called me annually for 3 years. And the year I finished my MFA, he called and said, Ratty, this is the last time, man. I've called you 3 times. We've got a great project. You need to get your butt out here. And I did. I made the jump and went to LA and got trained up. It was me, Bert, and Sean that were the first 3 guys trained up on these remote control luminaires. This would have been the late 80s, and it was a time when wiggly lights were all the rage. Wiggly lights and lasers. They were the big ticket items on the big shows. And it was still Verilight. That was a time when the Verilight contract required that you have a black room. And this was that if you brought in a show that had Verilights, you had to provide this secured room. The room had to have a security officer outside it, and that's where the Verilight guys would go to do all their repair. Because the technology was so advanced, nobody had it, and they had a lock on the market. You couldn't buy Verilights back then. You could only rent them, and you had to rent with them an operator and a technician, and it was a pretty good gig for Verilight, and still a good gig, and they still manufacture a quality lighting instrument. But the company that was in the United States that was providing a similar product was Morpheus. And Morpheus Lighting, and they had a couple of really cool products. You know, the basic lighting instruments are spots and wash luminaires, and so everybody had wiggly lights that emulated those characteristics. The spot fixtures would be loaded with gobos so that you could project patterns and do kind of crazy things with them. And the flood fixtures were all about washes of color, because if you wanted big washes of color back in the day, you had to load your lighting rig with hundreds of par cans, and then you'd get these 100K washes and stuff. And so it was the spot and wash fixtures that were coming onto the market, and the technology was such that and you may remember, if you think back to some of your old toys and some of the old robots, that the sample rates on the chips were so slow that everything kind of stepped. They'd had that sort of jerky motion to it. Well, these telescans were servo motor driven, and they were the brightest fucking lights on the market. They had 1.2 HMI. They were high. They were high discharge lights. They were follow spot lights, and they had a mirror on the head of them. And when they worked efficiently, they were the biggest, brightest, and most beautiful fixture out there. And me, Bert, and Sean were the first 3 guys trained up on these lighting instruments. And it was Sean and I that were the operators, trained up to go out as operators. And Sean went out with Janet Jackson, the Janet Jackson tour, and I went out with Madonna, the Madonna Blonde Ambition tour, working for a guy by the name of Pete Morris, who is still out there and widely recognized as one of the best rock and roll lighting designers in the industry, and justifiably so. He was around. You can do a search on him and find out a bunch of information about him, but he's the man when it comes to big time rock and roll rigs. So we were trained up on these lights and sent out on the road, and it was sheet metal construction. It was this huge box. These things were like 5 feet tall and weighed a couple of 100 pounds. They were oh my God, schlepping these damn things around on the road was kind of heinous. But they were like late model Harleys. They required a significant amount of labor to keep them running, but when they were running, they were kind of fabulous.
Well, and as far as lighting geeks go, it turned you into the rock star of your profession at the time too, right? Like you, one of the few guys.
That was it. There was, Obie's, the lighting company, they only had like 24 in that first year, and they got split up on those 2 rigs. And the company in France, they held their cards pretty close to their chest, and it was all about who was making money for what. So Obi was renting them from Telescan and had, the U.S. market, and anytime there was anything going on in Europe, it should have been Telescan France with them. So, yeah, we had the biggest and brightest for a while, but it was within a couple of years. Verilight came out with a 1.2K, and then the chip rates were, what is that? What's that law that
Moore's law. So it goes from 8-bit to 16 to 32 to 64. And
so it was within just a couple of years that the sampling rate was stepped up, and Telescan sort of saw its day. I worked with them for 5 or 6 years, and did a couple of big tours, did a bunch of small tours, still riding the Telescan rigs, but man, for a while there, they were, for a couple of years, they were the cutting edge technology.
so what was your favorite of all of those tours that you were on? You mentioned the Blind Ambition tour, but you went out with Bob Dylan, with Springsteen. I remember you talked about being on the road with Neil Diamond. Was that during the same time?
It was all during the same time. I actually went out and worked on the Neil Diamond tour, just in rehearsals. There was another guy, I can't remember his name, that took that show out on the road. It was at a time where Neil Diamond in particular, where I was transitioning to La Tech. I guess, I had a chance to do a couple of tours with Bob Dylan, and Bob was pretty particular about how he wanted things. And what was so interesting about Bob was he had a specific directive, which was you can't light Bob. he's like, I don't want any light on me. No light. And so the lighting designer struggled to find a way to have spotlights that he could use to follow Bob, but it didn't feel like he was lighting Bob, because otherwise Bob would go and hide on stage if he felt like he was being lit. Oh, it was kind of crazy, to watch this guy, man. One of the leading musical influences of our day and age. You watch him on stage and the lights would come up, and that's why he'd wear the big hats. He'd wear the hat and he'd hide his face, and he'd come up to the microphone and hide his face on the microphone. And it's where you're lighting, one of the adages in lighting design, particularly in theater, is that, if you can't see the face, you can't hear the actor. So you have to light the actor. You have to light the face. And with Bob, it was just the opposite. There were no front lights on Bob. There were all these, oh God, I can't even remember the guy's name now, the lighting designer. He was wacky as the day is long. But he was real influential in helping me develop an aesthetic, because it was, here it was one of the biggest names out there. I mean, Bob wasn't selling out stadiums, but everywhere we went, we were selling out, and everybody knew who he was. And the lighting designer was creating this mood, this atmosphere that was not about revealing the artist, but finding a way to allow the audience, because you had to be able to see Bob to be able to appreciate the concert. And it was through less he was creating more, and it was sort of an interesting way to look at lighting design and think about lighting design. I guess it was something that had always been in my aesthetic from the beginning, because I had begun with literally less budget, the college budgets, and then going to the outdoor drama, where I cut my teeth for over 30 years working on that. And boy, that would be a really good topic to talk about sometime. Is
I not just you, but I've got a whole list of people that I want to talk about the history of outdoor drama. I want to do a series, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's really cool things happening now. Anyway, that's where I cut my teeth, and so many national and regional lighting designers and directors that I had the opportunity to work with. But it became, one of the primary things you teach people is revelation of form. What's the primary purpose of lights is the revelation of form. And for me, early on, I looked at that and went, and you think about a single image, a single body on stage, and you light it, and there's the revelation of form, and you talk about the angles and where the light can come from. And for me, it became not the revelation of form, but the creation of shadow. What shadow am I creating? And I guess it's just a backwards way to look at it, but that's what has always provided interest for me is what shadow am I creating and how am I doing that and what is it that I want to accomplish in that? Because we have a palette. I mean, we live in this world filled with light, and whether or not we recognize that there is how would we describe this continuum of observation that provides solace in our daily journey, and with the way things are, we learn how things are, and so you get into the theater and you explore the way things could be, or here's another vision of how the way things are, and you hope that you create a little bit of magic or hope or joy or I don't know.
No, you nailed a lot of great stuff there. Let me tell you something too. You found the title of this episode. It's Mark Guinn and the Creation of Shadow. That's going to be the title of this episode. Hey, I want to transition in a minute here to the future, but before we do, I just got to ask you, because your last point touched so closely to it. Did you watch any of the Oscars the other night?
Oh, I got to watch just a little bit of it, sort of the tail end of it.
Did you see, and now I can't even remember who it was that did the commercial, but there was the commercial with the little blind girl describing the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, I didn't get to see that. I'll go find it and look at
it. I was going to say, yeah, go to YouTube when we get done with this and go look at this. But so she describes to you the world, and she describes to you the other characters, and then she says, and then you hear Dorothy's voice singing, and that's Dorothy. Dorothy looks like me. And then there she is dancing down her version of the Yellow Brick Road with her version of the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion. And it's amazing, Mark. It's so amazing. It's just, but the idea of seeing the world from a different point of view, and that's exactly what storytelling is, right? It's to bring us closer together, and whatever your path is to do that, then that's what you got to do.
Yes, and everybody's vision. Everybody's vision means something. What do you see? Don't be afraid to tell me what you see and say what you see, because it's yours. It's yours. It's solely yours, and no one can take that from you. And I'm interested.
So now you're out of or I say out, you're not out of the professional world, because you still do some cool gigs from time to time, but you in the educational world, you're focused now on building the next generation of lighting designers and scenic designers and actors and performers of all different stripes and managers, etc.
Yes.
What's the number one technological advancement in your time at Louisiana Tech and in your time in the educational world that has advanced, particularly the lighting world? What's the number one thing that you guys have come across?
It's the computer, hands down.
And just the way that you're able to order describe that process. So there is no manual interaction with the lights during the show now, or less?
It can be as much, or as it's that, oh man, it's that, I get this phone that I have in my hand, this phone, I can put everything on. I can put what used to be, 12, 13, 14 pages and pages of spreadsheets and notes for organizing the plot is right here. I just flip to my lighting design app and pull up all the information that I need and create an order. I can do it all right here in my hand. And everything from designing and organizing the plot to running the lights. There's, I got 2 or 3 apps on my phone that one day I hope to find an interface. They're all interface driven, right? You have to have a little black box that your phone talks to, that then drives the dimmer rack or whatever else you have. But I have lighting console, a full, complete lighting console emulation on my phone, so that I could sit in Howard Auditorium during the show and run the show whatever it is, or bring up whatever group of lights, do whatever it is that you want to be able to do. So it's the computer, the miniaturization of the computer. Did I say that word right? Miniaturization. Yes.
Miniaturization. There you go.
Of the computer, and slapping that thing on board so that, everybody has wiggly lights, man. The church has got wiggly lights. The bar's got wiggly lights. There's wiggly lights down at the gas station. It's, it's everywhere. It's just become common vocabulary. So that's, and even though you have this advancement, and this was the craziest thing about being out there. Like if we want to go back, I'll leap all the way back to the Madonna Blonde Ambition tour. Even in the middle of that, where there's hundreds of $1,000s being spent weekly on, there was, for that show, there were 6 lighting consoles driving everything that was going on. We had Vera lights, we had Morpheus lights, we had Telescan, we had lasers, we had everything sitting right there. But even at the fundamental, it was the revelation of form. And in this instance, this is the cool thing about rock and roll. In retrospect, I can look back at it and looking at the design and go, oh man, that shit's easy. Well, you've got one performer, and all you have to do is light that one performer, and then take this budget you got and create this symmetrical illusion behind them of ethereal vapor that you reveal by putting particulate in the air and hoping that people are smoking so much that you can see the light beams. Bam! There you are. You're done. Look at that. It's brilliant. So it is. It's this little. For us, it's this little handheld device because it really has. It really has brought the market to the kids, because it used to be, I sat down and you were at a drafting table. You began there. You started sketching things out, and then it was putting ink to Mylar and inking up the plot, and then sitting down and creating tons and tons of tables. That was the assistant lighting director or the lighting geek's job from the very beginning, was organizing and keeping up to date all the paperwork. And as soon as we got computers and spreadsheets, that was, the transition has just been really kind of seamless and easy. And there's a lot of purists and folks that will say, and I agree, you miss a significant amount by not having someone at a table with a pencil and a piece of paper and work on visualizing. Yet even now, it's the one thing I do to help people get into the model and begin thinking about space and the opportunities that the space that a stage offers are, it's like, get out Google SketchUp. There's free 3D modeling software right there, and all you got to do is download it and start playing. It's like, download it, start playing, create a set design, paint it with light.
So there's lots of places all over the country and all over the world to go and to play a while and to learn how to do these sorts of things. But you and I think, are both partial to one in particular. If somebody is interested in learning more about Louisiana Tech and the School of Performing Arts there, and coming to learn under you and some of the other great professors that you have, how do they find out more about you?
It's performingarts.latech.edu, man. Check out the School of Performing Arts, Department of Theater. We are a small, vibrant program based on the company model, building the artist of tomorrow since 1991. So actually even before that, but that's my tenure there.
And then, well, that's a good place to start it. Hey, and listen, there's a great way. It's not exactly in the lighting area, but there's a great way for people to come and sample Louisiana Tech and the School of Performing Arts and the theater department coming up soon with the Stage Combat Workshop. Tell folks a little bit about that.
The 24th annual Stage Combat Workshop is happening. It's always Easter weekend. People say, hey, when's the workshop this year? It's always Easter weekend, like it always has been. So it's Good Friday and Saturday. 2 days of stage combat training with some of the cutting edge professionals in the world. We don't have any, at the moment, we don't have any international teachers coming in. We've got folks coming in from all across the United States. This year, it's a all day Friday, all day Saturday. School's closed here, so we take over the Lambright Intramural Center. And last year we had 21 instructors from across the United States in theater, film, video. Oh my gosh, it's just about everything that you can imagine. We don't have our instructor list finalized as of yet, but I can tell you this, it's going to be healthy. I've got 26 people that have said that they're available, and we're just waiting on a budget to come through, and then we'll get the instructor list up on the website. But you should come out.
So what is that website? Where can people check it out?
Through the Department of Theater, that Performing Arts. Yep,
excellent.
Arts.latech get you to Department of Music and Theater, and then you can find us that way.
Okay, and I'll have those links in the show notes too, so it'll be easy for you to find, folks. Mark, thank you so much for talking to us, and we are going to have you back on soon for lots of different things, man. What a great conversation.
It was a pleasure, Joel. Thank you very much. You've what a great morning. You know, it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's a good start, man. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
It is a good start. Hey,
it was a great start. I hope it was a great start to your Thursday, too, or whenever you're listening to this show. I hope it's a great start or continuance to your day. MeandTheGeekPod.com is where you can find us all the time. You can find us at Me and the Geek on Twitter and on Facebook. You can email us, meandthegeek@teamprocreate.com. I want to say a quick thank you to Mark Guinn for joining us on the show. Also, a big thank you to The Word Modern for our theme song. It's called In Demand, and you can find links in our show notes on how you can find that whole album and more from them. Great, great music. Can't recommend it enough. Next week here on Me and the Geek, you're going to hear a great interview with Chad Brooks. He's a preacher buddy of mine and a geek, a big geek, as a matter of fact, a Bigfoot aficionado, a music lover as well. But we're going to talk to him about how he's using social media and multimedia in his pulpit, and also in helping mold and find his congregation as he starts a new church plant in our area here. That's Chad Brooks coming next week on Me and the Geek. Until then, review us in iTunes if you're enjoying the show, or on Stitcher, wherever you listen to podcasts. That'll help other people find us, or just share us with a buddy. Tell them to go to meandthegeekpod.com. Until next week, I'm Joel Sharpton. That's The Rogues Life on Twitter. You can follow me there. This week's geek was Mark Guinn, the director of the School of Performing Arts at Louisiana Tech University, and this has been the podcast.
1, 2, 3, 4. Woo!
Me and the Geek is a proud member of the Procast Network, a Procreate production. Procreate is a community of artists in film, music, the digital arts, and fine arts that helps them connect and collaborate on projects. You can find out more at teamprocreate.com. Also, be sure to check out one of our other great shows like Movie Buzzed. The Movie Buzzed podcast is exactly what it sounds like. It's a place for friends to get together, watch a good movie, and catch a good buzz. Every episode, your host Zach will be joined by a special guest or 5 to have some fun. Movie Buzzed is where you'll find your friends and a good buzz waiting for you.